Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Goulden Nugget. I am your host, of course, as always, Rob Gould. And today we will be talking about some FA Cup matches that have happened over the weekend, as well as a couple of championship games that featured over the course of the weekend as well. We do have Premier League action coming up this week, which has already been predicted from on last week's episode on the podcast as well, which went up on late Thursday as well. So it's still available to listen to as well. If you want to go back to that to listen to those predictions, that's where they will be. For this coming week, as in Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I think there's matches on as well. Then going into the weekend, we will predict for the weekend as well, because it is a big week of football. So it is, and like I say, you've got obviously a full set of fixtures going into the following week, and that which obviously, of course, kicks off on the 3rd of February, which is obviously the Saturday, and that where there's going to be plenty of games to be played, and that plenty of points up for grabs, and that as well. So we will kick things off with, as I say, the FA Cup results over the weekend, starting with Thursday's game between Bournemouth and Swansea City. Bournemouth finished 5, Swansea finished 0, 5-0 to Bournemouth. Then Friday's games, as I say, between Chelsea, Aston Villa, Sheffield Wednesday, Coventry, Bristol City and Forest, all finished a draw. Then Spurs and Man City finished Man City 1, Spurs 0, and that was played at Spurs' ground. I keep calling it White Hart Lane, it's not White Hart Lane anymore. I think it's just called the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium type of thing now. But it finished 1-0 to Manchester City, and they are safely through to the 5th round thanks to a Nathan Ake 88th minute goal. And all the other 3 matches there on Friday, there, as I say, finished all draws, which meant that they'll be replays played for those, which will make things interesting to find out when they're going to be. And then Saturday's matches that you have were Ipswich versus Maidstone, Leeds versus Plymouth, Leicester versus Birmingham, Sheffield United versus Brighton, Everton versus Luton, and Fulham versus Newcastle United. So first of all, Ipswich 1, Maidstone United 2. Leeds United 1, Plymouth Argyle 1. Leicester City 3, Birmingham City 0. Sheffield United 2, Brighton Hove Albion 5. Everton 1, Luton 2. Fulham 0, Newcastle United 2. And that just concludes Saturday's FA Cup fixtures. Birmingham and Middlesbrough were supposed to meet in the Championship, but it was postponed because of, obviously, with Birmingham's participation in the FA Cup. Then we move on to Sunday's matches, which featured West Brom versus Wolves, Watford versus Southampton, Liverpool versus Norwich, and Newport County versus Manchester United. And we will start off at the Hawthorns, where it finished West Bromwich Albion 0, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2. Then Watford 1, Southampton 1. Then Liverpool 5, Norwich City 2. Then Newport County 2, Manchester United 4. Now, however, the scoreline for Manchester United's match against Newport, so Manchester United, as I say, went 2-0 up, and Newport came back and equalised, and then Manchester United went on to score a third, and then the 4th one was scored in injury time in that match, which sealed United's 5th round spot. And we've still got one game being played at the moment in the FA Cup, which is at half time at the moment, featuring Blackburn and Wrexham. At the moment, the scores are Blackburn 3, Wrexham 1. And that does conclude the FA Cup 4th round matches. So we do have replays of those matches, but as I say, there have been no date as to when they are set as such as of yet. So, as I say, we did have some championship matches there as well. And Sunday's matches were from the Championship were QPR versus Huddersfield, which finished 1-1. And we had Millwall versus Preston, which finished 1-1 on Saturday, along with Sunderland and Stoke, which finished 3-1 to Sunderland as well. And folks, that does conclude the FA Cup portion of the football chat. And folks, let me know your predictions of who's going to win the FA Cup as well, because obviously, you've got Liverpool still in it, Manchester City still in it, Manchester United still in it. Chelsea and Villa still have to play each other in the replay as well. So that will make things interesting, to say the least. And then obviously with this week, you've got the Premier League matches during the week. So on Saturday, as this coming Saturday, which is, as this goes out, this will go out on, as I say, the Thursday beforehand. So this will be for the 3rd of February predictions. So we will be doing these live right now as well. So kicking things off, so I will write them down here as well. So we've got Everton versus Spurs. And I think with both teams being knocked out of the FA Cup as well, I think it's going to be interesting to see where this one plays, and how this one plays out, should I say, as well, because obviously Everton at home against Spurs, early kickoff. They'll want to give something to the fans, because obviously feel as if they've let the fans down with what happened, as I say, over the weekend with the FA Cup matches. Then you have Brighton versus Crystal Palace as well. Again, as I Brighton, who are still in the cup as well. Obviously, they're into the fifth round of the FA Cup by beating Sheffield United and that. But I think, so prediction-wise, I say for these matches so far, I would feel prediction-wise Spurs would have too much for Everton, and Brighton again would have too much for Palace. Then you have Burnley against Fulham. So obviously Fulham, I say, got knocked out by Newcastle, so they've something that they need to address there from that match. And as I say, it'll be interesting to see from that. Burnley obviously fighting for Premier League survival. I'm going to predict a Burnley home win, because they need the points badly. Then we're on to Newcastle, who, as I say, beat Fulham in the FA Cup to reach the 5th round. Play Luton Town, who again beat Everton to reach the 5th round. And this one I would be predicting a Newcastle United win. Can't see it being a straightforward win as what most people think it would be. But however, Newcastle would be surely favourites for this game. And then Sheffield United versus Aston Villa. Again, Sheffield United still have a lot to try and get for with regards to staying in the Premier League, but I can't see them getting past Aston Villa in this one, so I'm going to have to go for an Aston Villa win. And that's Saturday's fixtures. So we move on to Sunday, where we've got big games, big massive games. So we have got Bournemouth against Forest. Bournemouth versus Forest. I think Bournemouth will win that one, because, like I say, Forest form is not great at all at the minute. So it's not. Chelsea play Wolves. Again, not going to be an easy game. So I'm obviously, because Chelsea play Liverpool during the week as well, I'm going to go for a Wolves win for this game. Manchester United versus West Ham. I think, as I say, with United picking up the win there in that match, I think United, I'll give United confidence a bit, even though it was only Newport, but it was still a game that they had to win. But I think United, again, another game that they have to win is the West Ham game as well. So can I see United Manchester United picking up 3 points, yes, but I can see this being a draw as well. So I'm going to go for a draw. Arsenal versus Liverpool at the Emirates. I always go for Liverpool so I do, because Liverpool are just on fire at the minute. Yes, they have conceded a couple of goals and things like that over the past couple of games that they've had, but however, I just feel that they have enough to obviously, Arsenal haven't had, that obviously Arsenal will be playing during the week, but Arsenal didn't have to play over the weekend over in the FA Cup because obviously Liverpool put them out in the third round. So the fact that, as I say, going into this week's sort of set of fixtures, people say oh, Liverpool could lose this league here because they play Chelsea at home, which, if I'm honest, I've already predicted this, and I do predict that Liverpool will beat Chelsea, and I think they'll beat them quite comfortably, because Chelsea are not the team that started off with the start of the season where, a couple of games in, they were actually not doing too badly, and now they've just fallen apart, where Liverpool seem to be going from strength to strength, and they've only slipped up they've slipped up, they have had a few draws, and obviously only the only one defeat, but however, at home, the only team that hasn't that has actually stopped them from scoring has been Manchester United, where that game finished nil each. But however, I think Liverpool do have enough in the tank to beat Chelsea, and I do think they'll have enough in the tank on Sunday to beat Arsenal as well. And then we move on to Monday night's match, which features Brentford against Manchester City. Again, this is going to be another tricky game. Ivan Toney back firing all cylinders again for Brentford, and I think, and it being at Brentford as well, I think this could be a very hard game for Manchester City. I really do. I mean, Manchester City, they just about squeezed past Spurs in the FA Cup. They've got an easier match, during the week. Man City do, which is on, I think it's Wednesday they play. Yeah, so they play Burnley at home. So you would expect to get the 3 points in that game as well. But however, I just feel that I think Brentford could get something. I really, really do. I don't know if they could get all 3 points, but Brentford are a very physical team, and that under their manager. So, but sometimes you just don't bet against Man City either. But however, I will be, and I'll be going for a Brentford win, and that. So that does conclude the FA Cup results, alongside with the Premier League predictions for the weekend commencing the 3rd of February, which is, as I say, this coming Saturday. Almost got my dates wrong. So this coming Saturday is those Premier League predictions, and like I say, you do have the FA Cup match is still going on at the minute, which has just kicked off the second half, which is still Blackburn 3, Wrexham 1, and that. And as I say, obviously you've got Premier League action starting on Tuesday with Nottingham Forest versus Arsenal, Fulham versus Everton, Luton versus Brighton, Palace versus Sheffield United, and Aston Villa versus Newcastle. Then you've got on Wednesday Spurs versus Brentford, Manchester City versus Burnley, Liverpool versus Chelsea, which is obviously the tie of the game of the week sort of thing going into this weekend. And then you've got West Ham against Bournemouth and Wolves against Manchester United as well, which, as I say, have already been predicted from on last week's episode of the Goulden Nugget. And folks, for those who, as I say, don't already know, I am a part of the 5 Marks podcast team as well, which, as I say, we also have the Weekly Controversies podcast, which, as I say, airs on a Friday, and that, which, as I say, the next episode will be coming up this week as well, which will get interesting, and that, and obviously, as I say, Dean and Tony will be running it, but as I say, Dean, he's off for a couple of weeks. He's on holiday. He's on vacation. So Tony is taking over that episode, along with some help from people he brings into the conversation, and obviously be talking a lot about the Royal Rumble there as well, so that's why I'm not going to talk too much about what happened with the WWE Royal Rumble. But I will just basically sort of talk slightly about it. So obviously, Royal Rumble, WWE Royal Rumble was on Saturday, and I'm just basically going to say how I feel about it from start to finish. So you had the Women's Royal Rumble start off, and as a bit of an interest, we thought like oh we'll have fun with this type of thing. So a few of us had kind of you know come together and go like, okay, right, we'll predict this, we'll get pick six numbers kind of thing, and whoever draws these numbers will be for the women's and for the men's Royal Rumble, and we'll have fun, we'll have some fun with it, and we did. So obviously, sitting watching it live, and then like sort of like messaging the guys and stuff like that, going back and forth a wee bit, going like sort of like because I obviously because Bailey came out at number 3, she was many people's favorite to win the Women's Royal Rumble, and to pick her spot for WrestleMania, which she did by eliminating Liv Morgan right at the end, as Liv Morgan made a return as the number 30th entrant in the Women's Royal Rumble. But I think the big talking point from the Women's Royal Rumble was the return, or sorry, not the return, the debut, the in-ring debut of Jade Cargill, who obviously we know who came from AEW and was signed by WWE last year. And many thought that War Games was going to be where she was going to debut on. But I had it in my mind it would make more sense to debut at the Royal Rumble, which she did. I honestly thought that that's what would happen. I did predict, as I say, even with some of the ones on the 5 marks as well, that obviously you would have. I actually had Jade Cargill and Naomi as being 2 of the returns, and I did have down as Sasha Banks returning, but obviously she didn't return, and things like that. But however, the men's Royal Rumble I thought was a wee bit lackluster. Obviously, with Carmelo Hayes come into it in the Royal Rumble, which he's more so on NXT, but he has been on SmackDown and things like that. So again, it'll be interesting to see with that. And obviously, you get the call-ups coming up soon again to bring people up to the main rosters and stuff like that. But excuse me. But however, I thought there might have been more surprise entrants in the main Rumble. Now, people might say like, "Oh, but you had so many different ones to bring up." It's like, well, who were you going to really put into that spot as a surprise one? Do you know what I mean? But for those who watched the Royal Rumble and know who came into it, so obviously Pat McAfee was a commentary. He got drawn into being into the Rumble match as well, which I thought was, in my mind, I thought, okay, comedy spot, yeah, fair enough. But the fact that he went into the ring, came out of the ring, and then eliminated himself is kind of like, well, that was a bit of a pointless spot to give to anybody. Because at the end of the day, you could have given a spot like that, and make it more worthwhile. Like anybody, even somebody from NXT, bring them in. Let them show what they've got. On a main stage level, and that, like to me, Ilya Dragunov, I thought could have been brought into this. It would have been a perfect one for him to come in. But Braun Breaker did come in and did make an appearance, and he was one of the ones who I thought that may show up on this Rumble because he has been on the main roster before, and not been on Raw defending the NXT Championship, and then obviously he lost at one point, and then he won it again, and things like that. But I thought the final 4 in the Rumble. So you had the likes of Gunther. You had so you Drew McIntyre. And you had CM Punk, and Cody Rhodes, and that, um, and it, and it was nice to see Braun Breaker in it as well. I think people might think he's a bit boring, but one dimensional. But do you know what? He's athletic. He's good. He's getting better on the mic, and that, from what I've seen, and give him a shot again on the main roster. Again, you can always switch between brands if needs be. So there's no issue with him going on to NXT if he needs to go on to NXT and things like that. Um, but I do have someone who you just seen there at the corner of your eyes who has made an appearance in the Royal Rumble, who eliminated The Undertaker, and he just happens to be here talking on the show. Hey, Maven, is there anything that you want to say to the folks? I'm back. Well, on this episode anyway. So, Maven, what was your favourite thing about the Royal Rumble that you watched on Saturday? So, my favourite thing was the fact that Bayley won the Women's Royal Rumble because I think she has a potential of winning the championship. Also, as I say, I think Braun Breaker being in the Royal Rumble was really good. But it was so funny with R-Truth making an appearance in the Women's Royal Rumble and thinking and then appearing in the men's, and then thinking he was in a tag team match was brilliant. Absolute fun spot. But I think Cody Rhodes definitely deserves to finish a story and against Roman Reigns, and that is how I feel about that. Thank you, Goulden One. That was Maven making an appearance, a special guest appearance out of nowhere. And we may be hearing, or we may not be hearing from Maven again later in the episode. But however, as I say, going forward, obviously, Raw tonight, and that bit of a preview. Obviously, I think you'll find that Cody Rhodes will come out because obviously now you'll find Cody Rhodes going on SmackDown probably a bit more, and that because of obviously with Roman Reigns being kind of like SmackDown exclusive as such, and they're going to have a bit of back and forth for that as well, depending on how many times Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns shows up on SmackDown as well. But I can definitely see Cody winning it this time. As much as I would like Roman Reigns to keep hold of the title as long as he can, it makes sense to finish its story now than to not finish its story. And I just think that, as I say, that there's still so much more that the two of them can actually offer, even in this second kind of match. But I feel that, as I say, it was a straight up one-on-one match the last time. This match, I don't know if it's going to be so much as a straight up one-on-one match between the two of them. But I can just feel that there's something going to happen. I don't know what it is, but I can just feel that there's something happening in that match that involves them two. So whether it's going to be a stipulation match or whether somebody's going to return in the match, I just don't know. But it makes it interesting to see now with obviously Raw tonight. You've got the Elimination Chamber coming up in less than a few weeks. And it seems to be set up where it's going to be the Elimination Chamber for the men's one is going to be for the number one contendership for Seth Rollins' World Heavyweight Championship. That's where I think CM Punk will win the Elimination Chamber, where he'll go on to headline against Seth Rollins. Whether it'll be the main event match, I don't know, because obviously going into WrestleMania, you still don't know who's facing who. But for the women's championship, obviously, it's still to be decided who Bayley chooses. So could she choose on Raw? Could she choose on SmackDown? And could she pick Io Sky? Also, there's a potential of going for Rhea Ripley. I think that has a bigger, to me, that has a bigger kind of main event feel to it. But the story orientated with Damage Control and with Io Sky would make sense. But I just feel that, as I say, she will pick Io because of that. Um, because obviously you've got the Kabuki Warriors and you've got Io as the women's champion. Bailey's still kind of like, being, kind of like head, of the table kind of thing from their side. The running things there. But I would rather have Io still being a champion. I think she's been a very good champion. She's very good in the ring. Is she one that doesn't? Is she one that needs a championship to be good? Do you know what I mean? Because the fans can get behind Io, but the fans are behind Bailey as well. But Bailey with being a heel is kind of like, heel Bailey's so good, but face Bailey was so good as well. But you wouldn't want to change Bailey the way she is now after the past couple of years she's had. So, but I can see Bailey winning a championship very soon. Is WrestleMania her moment? I think it could be. But the question is, against who? Will we find out in Raw tonight who she could be facing? That is the question. As I say, depending on who she chooses, because she would have to choose someone quick. Because I feel that whoever she doesn't choose, they will be in another Elimination Chamber match for that championship. So if if she chose Rhea Ripley, Io Sky will defend her Women's Championship, I would imagine, in the Elimination Chamber match. However, I think that's one of the reasons why I think it'll happen, because Seth Rollins will defend, he won't defend his, but the number one contendership for his championship will be on the line in an Elimination Chamber match. That is why I think she will choose Rhea Ripley. And it will then be Io Sky defending against 5 other women in an Elimination Chamber match. And that way, then you could have, it would set up for WrestleMania nicely. So it would, because after the Elimination Chamber match, or after the Elimination Chamber Premium Live event, you won't have another Premium Live event until until it gets to WrestleMania. But folks, what are your predictions for, who will Bailey choose to go for? Will she choose Rhea, or will she choose Io? That's going to be the big question. And again, it looks as if it's settled on who Cody's going for, which seems to be Roman Reigns, to finish the story. Again, to those who listen to the podcast, do you think Cody will finish the story this time? Or do you think the head of the table, Roman Reigns, will once again reign supreme and walk away as the undisputed WWE Universal Champion? Excuse me. Only time will tell. Only time will tell. But as I say, if I was given the Royal Rumble pay-per-view or Premium Live event a rating out of 10, overall I would give it an 8. Mainly because of the women's Royal Rumble match, as well as the Fatal 4-Way for the Undisputed Universal Championship, which we haven't talked about yet because, like I say, we will be discussing that on the Weekly Controversies, I would imagine so, as well in this week's episode. So I don't want to be talking too much about that, if those guys are going to be talking about that on theirs as well. But folks, again, I say sometimes these episodes can be short, sometimes it can be a bit longer than usual, but this one's going to be a little bit shorter than usual. So we're coming up to half an hour. into this recording. And as I say, SmackDown this coming week, which will be reviewed, as I say, for next week's episode and stuff. And obviously, we will talk about what happened this week on Raw going into next week's episode as well. So next week, as I say, we'll be recording it again in and around about the same time as as this week. And then, like I say, I'll be taking notes for what happened in Raw tonight and stuff, along with, as I say, with what's going on, with what's happening with Jade Cargill. Obviously making her in-ring debut, Naomi returning. Where does she fit into all of this as well? Could they be two of the stars that could possibly in the Elimination Chamber match after returning, along with, as I say, Liv Morgan potentially there as well. So it will make things interesting as well. I did honestly thought Brock Lesnar would actually show up in the Rumble, but there's a good reason why he may not have been, which again, as I say, will be left for another day because there's too much to go into that where I don't want to start anything. As much as this is a football and wrestling chat podcast, I don't want to delve too much into that side of things as such, because there's just too much to look into and too much to kind of like wrap our heads around with what's happened with that. But another point, actually to do with wrestling as well, and that is we have TNA. So basically, Jordynne Grace had made an appearance on the Rumble. Obviously, she is the TNA Knockouts champion. And as I say, she appeared in the Rumble to a surprise and to a really good ovation as well from what I thought. Now, however, I did feel that in the stadium as such, or in the arena, that the fans I thought were very flat. Like there just didn't seem to be like any reaction to or much reaction to anyone coming out, even with the surprise entrance and things like that and stuff, until they knew who it was or what and whatnot coming down. And even at that, sometimes it was very, lackluster. And I thought that was quite disappointing to sort of see and to hear. Because, as I say, we had some of the guys from the weekly controversies and stuff like that, and that they were over at a watch party over in London for the Royal Rumble. And to be honest, the atmosphere there, to me, felt better than it did in the arena for the Royal Rumble. And that's only with a couple hundred people, at least, that were there for that. And that says a lot about some of the fans that appeared to watch the Royal Rumble. Do you know what I mean? Because the Royal Rumble is one of the biggest events of the year, not just in WWE, but as a whole. Like everyone gets look forward to watch it. And everyone, do you know what I mean? And this is going to be the last one that you're going to be able to watch along with as well, because obviously with WWE now going on to Netflix as such from 2025, which, as I say, briefly mentioned about as well, that, as I say, that will start in 2025. Don't know the details as to if it's going to be all the content from WWE. So obviously you'll have the likes of your live Raw, your live SmackDown, NXT, and things like that, and premium live events. But I don't know about the back catalogue of content that WWE has now still currently on the network as to where that will end up being, because not everyone follows the new stuff as much as WWE would like you to. But a lot of people still love watching the old stuff back, and that, whether it's for references or whether it's just for like just for something different to watch. To watch the older style of wrestling, to watch the old school kind of thing. The the Attitude Era and things like that and stuff. But yeah, um, but it'll be interesting to see where that all that sort of stuff goes. Whether it'll go on to Netflix in the subsections or where it goes, who knows. But as I say, we'll find out probably a lot closer to the time as well, and in the 2025 as to what is going on there. Um, but folks, also just before I come off here, I've got so obviously me being the Rob Gould has got some merchandise available, which I will show to the viewers. As I say, this is on obviously YouTube. But you'll see these. So these are the Rob Gould pens. So they have obviously the Rob Gould, as I say, dotted triangle with the RG and the hand up, or sorry, the finger up, should I say. And it's done in gold and obviously the white background around it as well. Also, I say still getting new t-shirts looked into as well. Just trying to get a good price for them as well. But also, once I get the design, I will be taking pre-orders first for them before actually ordering these as well, because obviously they're not going to be cheap and things like that sort of thing. So I would rather take pre-orders in first for them. Also, to those folks who use Revolut and things like that for transfers and things like that, I do also have a Revolut account now, which, as I say, obviously this is just a card and this is just my beautiful card, which has Rob Gould on it as well. And that is that. But folks, again, I want to take the time to thank each and every one of you out there who listen to the podcast, who come on to YouTube and check it out and things like that. As I say, obviously these episodes and stuff, once they're recorded, go out on a Thursday, 6 o'clock sharp, and that whenever they get put out on, and they'll be put on for the audio on Spotify and Amazon, and available to watch through YouTube as well. And folks, from me and from Maven, it is goodbye for this episode. Say goodbye, Maven. Goodbye, Maven. And that is going to be us for the evening. And folks, as always, if there's one thing that you already do, that's grand. That's perfect. It's more than what I could want. But if there's one thing that you don't do, and that is to acknowledge me.